Hi, it's Bee with Crafting Daily Dose, and today I have a dimensional alternative for the August 2023 paper pumpkin kit called Meaningful Flowers. I just added a little bit of cardstock to the supplies for this project here to turn it into a box card. On the back, there is that lovely sentiment that explains the meaning of the lotus flower, and then there's room for a message up here. And on the front, I've used the beautiful die cut, the decorative panel, and even the vellum. Because this is a box card, it stands up for display, just like this. This is going to be really fun for somebody to receive. Stay tuned and we'll make one together. Here are the supplies for this project. The card base is Starry Sky cardstock, and it is 7.5 inches across by 4 1/4 inches in height, and along the long side there are two score lines, one at 2 inches and one at 5.5 inches. And there's one more score line going across like this. It's 2.5 inches from the bottom edge. We're going to do some additional cutting on this piece, so don't fold anything just yet. And remember that in the description box below, there's a link to the blog post so you can find a summary of all the measurements. Now my other piece here is 4.5 inches across by 2.5 inches in height, and it's got score lines at 1/2 inch and at 4 inches. Or again, that means that it's 1/2 inch from each side. I have the piece of vellum here that is from the kit. Now when you're working with the vellum, two things to remember. There's going to be a side that is a little bit more dull and then a side where the color is more vibrant. You probably want to use this side for the front, but maybe you prefer the more subtle side. Just check them both out and see what you like. Now for right now, I just have one score line that is 1/4 inch from the left-hand side. This side's going to get folded too, but not quite yet. When you're scoring vellum, just remember that you can't press too hard or else it might tear on you, so just be gentle. Now I've got two pieces here that have been cut from pieces from the kit. They're both the same size, 3.5 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And let me show you how I got those. So here's what the panel originally looked like, and so you can see that I've cut it this way. That means that I cut off 1/2 inch from the left-hand side and 1 inch from the top to get to this piece. This here comes from the card base, except we're using the back because I really like the message here. And in order to get to this piece, I cut off 1/4 inch from the bottom and 1 inch from the top. And then I cut off 3/8 inch from each side so that the words would still be centered. Now I'm planning to use this for my message panel. There's room here for me to write a short message and sign my name. If you want more space, then you might choose to leave this off and just use a piece of basic white or other light colored cardstock here instead. I'm using the Lotus die cut from the kit and then also the clear embellishments. And I'll be stamping my sentiment with the pretty Peacock ink that came with the kit. Everything's ready and we can get started. First, I'm stamping the sentiment onto this die cut using pretty Peacock ink. I've got my silicone craft sheet underneath for a little bit of extra cushion. After you've made the score lines on this piece, you're basically going to have 6 rectangles. Look for the 2 smallest ones because those are the ones that we're going to be cutting off. And just double check, they should be 2 inches across by 1 3/4 inch in height. So make sure you're working with the correct ones. So here's what you should end up with. Now let's go ahead and fold. We don't technically need this score line, but it was just easier to create one score line going all the way across. Don't worry, it's going to get covered up on both the front and the back, so we just won't worry about it. we are going to fold these two here, and they are going to be folded towards us, so we're creating valley folds. Next, we'll use this piece. I've gone ahead and folded along the score lines here in both directions and reinforced it with my bone folder so that those creases are nice and flexible. These are going to be gluing tabs on the side, and to make them a little bit neater, I generally like to cut out small little triangles. You can see they're just very skinny wedges. For this step, I'm using glue as my adhesive, but you can also use the tear and tape. I like the glue because I can make little adjustments before it sets up if I need to. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue just on one tab, this one here on the left. And it's going to attach to this left panel here. I'm going to take my piece and turn it upside down, so now the glue is down here. And I'm looking at this score line, this crease, and I want it to be about 1/2 inch from the edge of this piece. So I've got my grid paper here, and 1/2 inch would be 2 of these blocks, right about here. You can also eyeball it. Don't be stressed about having to make it super precise. It's just an estimate. But what you do want to do is to make sure that this bottom edge is lined up. That's going to help make sure that your card sits nicely and isn't wonky. I'm going to burnish this with my bone folder. Because I want that to be nice and stuck there. I'm just testing it. Seems like it's set up nicely. And now I'm going to fold this back. And you can already begin to see how this is going to work. This other side is going to attach to the right panel, and then it's going to create a little box like that. So let's go ahead and put adhesive over here. I want to make sure that I'm going all the way to the crease and all the way to the edges. I probably have a little bit too much there, so I'm just going to squeegee that out. Okay, now before I put the pieces together, what I'm doing is I'm squashing everything over to the right. Let me give you a view from the top so you can see that more clearly. Everything is getting pushed over to the right. I'm going to take my glue tab and tuck it underneath and then press it down onto this piece here. Again, I'll give you a closer look. And the reason that I'm doing that is so I can make sure that everything can fold down completely flat when I push it over to the right. It's fine to squash it down in the other direction instead, as long as you're picking a side. Once that has set up, then I can push it slightly in this direction just to kind of work those folds, and then my box sits very nicely. Next, we're going to put on the vellum piece, and here is that score line that I created on the left-hand side. Here, I'm just going to use my fingers to fold that and kind of burnish it just with my fingers. It's a little bit more gentle than using the bone folder there. And this time I'm going to use the tear and tape that came with the kit. Now this is really cool because it's actually more narrow than the one that you can buy from the catalog. So it gives us a nice advantage here because, as you can see, the surface that we're trying to put it on is pretty narrow too. Going to go ahead and get it started here, and I want to be right up next to that crease. And And instead of trying to make myself go straight the whole way, I'm just going to roll out a section, kind of hover it over my surface, and then I can press it down all in one go. And I'll tear it off. I'm unfolding it just for a second because I do want to burnish this part down. I'm not burnishing the fold or the crease. I'm just making sure that the tear and tape is really adhered well to the vellum. Now I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to help me get off the backing here, but I'm only going to do it part way. That gives me a chance to adhere it to my card base and just work with it a little bit at a time. Again, I'm making sure to line up the bottom edge. And when that looks good, then I can gradually peel off a little bit more and work my way all the way to the top. So here's what that looks like so far. Now once again, I'm going to squash everything over to the right. And now I'm going to flip the whole thing upside down, just so that I can see that vellum hanging off from the edge here when I'm looking at it from the back. I'm going to use that to my advantage and just press the vellum up around the edge of my cardstock. So basically I'm using that as a guide to know where to fold. That way, if my previous folds were not exactly precise, I don't end up with weird angles here at the end. So now that I've done that, I can just test it from this side, kind of unhook that edge, press it down, and just make sure that I've got a good fit and that everything lies down flat. If it looks good, then I can go ahead and put the tear and tape on this side and do the same thing as before. I'm tucking this underneath and attaching it to the cardstock, and then I can gradually peel off more and more of the backing. And there is our box card. We just have to finish decorating it. This panel is going to be attached up here, so before you put any adhesive on it, just slide it in and check to make sure that it fits nicely. If it's a little bit too snug, then trim off a little bit extra from the sides here. But mine seems like it's going in well, so I'll go ahead and put glue. This time I'm switching to the broad side of my glue since I'm covering a large area. And same thing for the back. You can take a quick peek at your edges. If you've got any overhang, like I have a little bit right there, then you can trim that off with your snips. And now it's time to add on the die cut. I'm going to turn this so that you can see. We're going to put it right here so that this leaf is just above the edge of our water here. So it's going to be like this. Now, if you look at it directly head on, you won't be able to read the bottom part of the sentiment. But remember, whoever gets this is going to be sort of looking down at the card, and they're going to be able to see that sentiment. So I'm putting some glue just on the bottom here. Now you'll notice that the edge here does hang over the side a little bit, but that's okay because when the card is folded down flat, it's still going to fit inside the envelope, even if you squash it down the other way. And then finally, I'm just going to add some of those clear embellishments. There's our finished card. Now it still fits flat in an envelope, but with just a little bit of cardstock, we were able to add in a lot of dimension. There is room to write a message on the back, and there's this lovely sentiment there. And of course, this is a box card, so it can stand up for display, and it will be a great reminder to whoever you're sending encouragement to. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity. If you're interested in Paper Pumpkin but don't yet have a demonstrator, you can find my subscription link as well as all of my other links in the description box below. If you get a chance to try out this project, I would love to see it, so share it in my Facebook group or tag me if you're sharing elsewhere. I hope to craft with you again next time, and until then, have a great day.